tell us.
I could pick on you first, Esther.
Oh, me? Yeah, sure. Hi.
So thank you for coming. So I want to introduce my panelists, Esther, Dori, and SoVanna. Thank you for coming. Esther, if you could, kick it off and do a quick intro about yourself and the organization that you're supporting today.
Sure. Hi. My name is Esther Broudy. It's kind of weird that I'm exposing my real name here because everybody knows me by my Twitter profile. My professional background, I am a former project manager, a director of project management for a sports technology company in the yesteryears of my career. I got into crypto in 2016, changed the trajectory of my life, changed the way I thought about money, consensus, governance, all of the above. And fortunately, now fast forward to NFT circuit in the early 2021, got my foot in the door with some sick communities in the NFT space. I'm not sure if you guys have heard about Broudy Yacht Club. That is who I'm here to represent. I am the founder of the Ladies of BAYC, which is a sub-community of all the female holders. We are building this network out with, I already see wonderful women in here. You guys seem pretty awesome. I'm probably gonna try to recruit you afterwards. So that's why I'm here. I'm here to speak a little bit about community and some of the opportunities that I found in Web3.
Hi everyone, my name is Dori Broudy. I am an artist, the founder of the Gallery of Good, and a former litigator of 10 years in New England, New York City, and finally in Philadelphia. So I'm wearing a couple of different hats, I suppose, as I've entered Web3. I have been a traditional illustrator for the last 5+ years, and I entered Web3 just over a year ago when I introduced the first of 2 collections of mine in one-of-one form. The Gallery of Good is named such because I create what is hopefully celebratory and joyous artwork. Everything from business operations to design to production takes place in the city of brotherly love, and everything has a charitable component. And the NFT portfolio is no exception to those underlying principles. Thank you.
So, hello, my name is SoVanna Day-goins, very complicated name, made up. SoVanna is Sonia and Yvonne, my 2 sisters, so I am the, by far, youngest of 3 girls. I am the co-founder and CEO, as well as the curator of Genius for a company called WomenXMeta. I have many reform bankers in this room. I spent 30 years on Wall Street and decided to leave because I was in search of a more democratized ecosystem. And so I started my company as an intergenerational education company to teach women and people of color more about blockchain technology and its use cases. So that they will come and join this space because we know that more diverse voices will bring about a better ecosystem overall. And I guess my superpower is I try to unlock the genius that resides in everyone and all the people that I have had the pleasure of working with over the years. I really focus in on the individual and say, what are you really good at? And I encourage and support that happening. So that's why I'm here. I'm going to make sure that it's not just a room full of men, that it's going to be a room full of beautiful women. And by the way, who doesn't want to be around a beautiful girl? I mean, come on, it's like really part of the use case, part of the business case, whatever you want to say. But we bring a lot to the system. So I'm here to talk more about that.
Dori, the next question will be for you.
Oh, is this one? Oh.
Yeah. So, and I didn't tell you ladies this, but I'm going to get you on the spot. So I'm going to kick it off with a fun fact. So if you could start off with one fun fact about yourself, and then we'll do a follow-up question to that.
Sure. So my name is Dori, but my middle name is Ellen. And I've been assured by not just my immediate family, but just about everybody who knows me, that my memory is also very consistent with finding Dori.
Nice. Well, follow-up question.
Oh,
So, Dori, from a commercial litigator to a Gallery of Good founder, what inspired you to get involved with NFT, and what's your passion that drives that that mission?
Thank you for the question. When I was a commercial litigator, I focused on an area of law known as contentious reinsurance. So arbitration and litigation focused on reinsurance disputes. At the time that I was practicing in that area, it was a very niche area of law. And one of the exciting things about it was A, not a lot of people knew how to do it correctly, and B, a lot of the decisions or resolutions to disputes were conducted in a private arbitration setting. So the strict rules of law didn't necessarily apply. Oftentimes, it would be what industry custom and practice dictated that would resolve a particular dispute. So it allowed for a level of creativity. I find NFTs and Web3 to be fairly consistent with that sort of ideology or practice, if you will. NFTs for me were frankly an extension of my existing portfolio. I was already creating illustrations that were converted into a variety of different conversions, acrylic block, prints, fine paper, etc. And all of them had a charitable component. And so having the luxury and good fortune of having a dear friend who happens to be the head of the blockchain laboratory at Wharton, who's also a collector of my physical work, who encouraged me to enter Web3 about a year and a half ago, I thought, well, first of all, what the heck is Web3? But it was exciting to stumble upon something that was still very much similar to reinsurance at the time. It was practicing a very niche area. And so I learned as much as I could. I'm constantly learning, as I'm sure we all are, about this particular subject matter. But I loved the idea of being able to extend my portfolio to a new community of potential collectors and community members who were like-minded in terms of wanting to support charity, wanting to support local businesses.
Thank you. Esther? So, remember, first question, fun fact.
Oh yeah, you guys might not believe this, but I am a Web3 politician. I am running for office for the ApeCoin DAO, which is a multi-billion-dollar treasury grant. Like you mentioned before, this is just the ApeCoin version of it. I'm currently running for something called the governance stewardship, which is, we're building out that structure. When you're talking about, it's like, that's what we're doing right now, giving the community the opportunity to create something in governance where it's consensus based on community, not just from the centralized figures. So that's kind of my thing right now. I don't look like a politician, I know, so yeah, surprise, that's a fun fact.
You look like a politician. So what inspired you and your co-founders to create this community of digital apes? Can you talk about what that is, and then what's their inspiration, and then what's the continued passion to build that mission?
Yeah, so are you guys familiar with Broudy Yacht Club? Okay, cool, like it seems like a good balance, right? So Broudy Yacht Club is a 10K collection of ape cartoons, brought together like a wide variety of members to just kind of what Dori's doing, like utilizing some kind of token or some kind of graphic to bring together a certain group of people. When I first joined, I felt like women weren't being seen, whereas having the title of a ape holder, mutant holder, had a lot of credentials, but because as a female, we would go to events and be like, oh, who are you here with? Are you somebody's plus one? Are you somebody's date? So fast forward last April, we got a committee of 6 women together, and we created our first IRL event, which hosted about 150 different female ape holders, which is a big deal, guys. And the COO Yuga even came through. Like, it was a big deal for us, and the event was called Not a Plus One. So we get to, you like that, right? We get to do a little bit of like blockchain technology, experiment with token gating, experiment with community building, experiment with just a lot of things. We get first dibs on a lot of things just being part of this network.
SoVanna, fun fact.
So despite how I'm dressed, despite the fact that I told you I spent 30 years on Wall Street, I've been to a rave with one of my daughters, and I've been to DragCon with the other. So I'm a lot of fun.
Nice.
Did you say it was WomenXMeta? What was it?
WomenXMeta.
WomenXMeta?
.xyz.
Yeah, we're gonna share the QR code up on the wall.
Because when I go there, this is the free Bad Bitches Blockchain Bible, that's you?
Yep,
We'll
that's me.
talk about that.
Told you she was fun.
I
So,
told you.
SoVanna, as a past banker in my life, when I was looking over your bio, got me interested to say, okay, well, she built this kick-ass community, women-based community based on Web3. What inspired you, and what was your journey like moving from banking to build this amazing organization?
Well, the journey, I'm just going to be honest, for all those who are entrepreneurs in the room, you'll know what I'm about to say. When I worked for a large organization, which by the way was Swiss, there were lots of people around, right? So there were analysts, associates, VPs, directors. I could look around and say, oh, somebody in this room is going to do that for me, right? Now I look around and I go, oh, that's me. I guess I will be everything. So I have learned a lot through this process. Although I came with a lot of business background, a lot of finance, a lot of expertise, I felt like I was a new, a newbie in this world of Web3. But what became very, very clear to me is that when my oldest daughter, who is an educator, she is a K-12 teacher, and she said to me, Mom, I spent a year and a half educating children online during the pandemic. I had to create virtual experiences for them, and I did that so that they would not lose any learning through the time that they were out for a year and a half. All of her kids excelled because she created these virtual experiences. She said, the metaverse is the way, right, forward for education. And she said, quite honestly, it is really the way that my kids are already playing and interacting with others. And so she said, Mom, what do you know about the metaverse? I said, I know very little about the metaverse, but honestly, let's do our diligence. So what happened was the three of us were supposed to go out and do diligence, and my youngest, who is a true Gen Zer, so anybody of my vintage who has a Gen Zer, you're going to know what I'm about to say. She said to me, what are you talking about? What is this due diligence thing? She's like, it is clear that the future is already here. She said, I have friends who own crypto. I have friends who own NFTs. I have friends who are already gamers who play in the metaverse. The future's here. So the only question is, what role do we play? And I said, you're absolutely right. I need to create a pathway for people who don't quite understand that, to be sure that this is an opportunity set that we don't have come around very often, right? There have been many speakers here who have talked to you all about decentralization. What that honestly means is democratization, right? It means inclusivity. It means greater access. It means greater transparency. It means greater accountability. That is something that folks who play on the margins never get inside of. It is time that we change that narrative and put it in the very center. And if I spent 30 years on Wall Street doing the traditional thing, I can come here and make something new and different. And that's why I'm here. I'm here because I have young adult children who told me where the future was, and I owe it to them to make sure that we create the right pathways for them and for everyone else.
Let's talk about the elephant in the room. That blockchain Bible you have on the website that I saw that you and I spoke about, I was like, I can't say that, while
Yeah,
recording
you
me.
can't
So.
say it, but I own it. So he said that there's a Bad Bitches blockchain Bible that when you go onto our website, it's the first thing that you can subscribe to. It's very sensational to use language like that because it gets people's attention. But quite honestly, there's a bigger meaning for us. If someone walks up to me and says, "You're a bad bitch," I'm like, yes, I am. And I will own that because that means bad bitches get shit done. And that's the honest truth. So I felt like language can often be used against people, but not if you own it, right? So I own this. I own this because I believe that we are striking a new narrative. We are bold, we are fierce, and that's what that entails. I also host every Thursday at 5 p.m. if anybody wants to come, Bad Bitches Bullshit in the Blockchain. And that is a discussion to talk about. There are wonderful things about blockchain. There are some things that need a lot of work, including building community standards, because we know that regulations are coming. We know that changes are going to be made, whether these bills have been passed or not. There is an effort to move this to a different place. We need to be prepared for that. So we talk about those real world issues. We also have a conference called Blockchain for Social Good, which we co-created with 3 other women in Web3. And that is basically to take this technology and apply it to age-old social issues that have never been solved. And this has the potential to do so. It's a tool. So that's my journey, that's my story.
Thank you, round of applause, that's amazing. So the following questions will go to all the panelists. You ladies could take turns. But what are some of the challenges that women face in either the NFT market, blockchain, Web3, however you see it?
Well, I'm holding the mic, so I'll start. But universally, we know what the challenges are, right? They're the same. Just because we call this Web3 does not change the fact that you and I are sitting together in the real world, right? So now we've created a digital twin who has the same challenges as my physical twin, right? So I don't think they're as big a challenge as we make them out to be, because the truth is, groupthink is terrible. We need people with a lot of diverse thoughts. It's the way that you create a competitive advantage when you go out and try to compete with other folks in the world. It's the way that you do not leave any economic upside on the table, right? If you leave out a whole group segment of people, women, you've left money on the table. We are big consumers. I think Dori might even know some stats on that. We are big consumers, right? So if you're not speaking to us, you're leaving out a segment of the population that is not economically or socially sustainable. So as a business case, to me, this is just about why not be more inclusive so that you ensure that you don't leave any money on the table, because that's just stupid. And you would tell anybody that you talk to, never do that. That's a bad business case. So that's my assessment.
I would certainly mirror what SoVanna just mentioned. And another thing that I would add, I don't know that this is gender specific, but I think one of the challenges in Web3 generally is getting women and people generally to trust Web3 and to understand it. And in order for that to be resolved, we need to meet people where they are, and we also have to make it as easy as possible for them to say yes. How do you do that? You identify things in the world that they're already familiar and comfortable with, and you compare them and somewhat contrast them with what Web3 is like. But if you speak to them, as someone had to speak to me, frankly, as if I were in elementary school when it came to Web3 initially, and get people over the hump of the distrust, the disorganization, and the fear factor. I think that As that process continues, and as the crisis in trust in the United States, at least, that seems to be here when it comes to Web3, as that's further chipped away at, I think we'll see not just more women, but more participants generally in Web3.
I think both of you guys have great points. When I first entered the Web3 space, so as mentioned, I was in crypto first. Not a lot of community for welcoming for women, per se. Everybody's just, they don't give a lot of, there's like, it's a very boys club, but at the same time, they're not really focused on what gender you are. So my PFP on Twitter, I rock a ugly ass mutant. It's a mutant 8, just let me tell you, this is not an attractive thing. But it's like, we kind of wear that as like a badge of honor, almost like how we will wear a Phillies jersey or an Eagles jersey to say this is the community we represent and this is who we fuck with, right? Excuse my language, my apologies. So that allowed us to kind of congregate like within Discord, just being, language is important. If you're able to talk a certain way or at least communicate in certain ways, you're able to get through different doors. And I think that's part of the pseudonymous culture behind crypto and NFTs that some of us got attracted to. But when it did matter for us to reveal ourselves as women, here I am in front of, this is not normal for me, guys. Like, I do not usually come up, and it's been 5 years since the last time I spoke on a panel using my real name, so let me just say that. So this is really exciting for us to meet face to face, to show you this is like some of the authentic builders you're gonna run into. We are not buttoned up, we're not all lawyers and ex-bankers. But you get a wide range of people who have a genuine interest for the space and the desire to build towards this future where it is a little bit more optimistic than what we're looking at with the legacy structures of the system we live in now.
So how do we help encourage women participate in the space to just grow that demographic in that space?
Is this for me? Because I feel
This
like
is for all three of you.
I feel like SoVanna will crush this question. So. Okay, so I'll kind of stand. I'll start with something easy. There are a lot of projects focused around women, female empowerment, and that doesn't necessarily mean it's a girls' club. It's nothing at all like that. It's just we are given this opportunity in the landscape of the digital space where it's unlimited. So instead of trying to squeeze up on a table, there's this large table. You just need to create space on your own, which is amazing. Like, there are tons of sub-communities. I'm sure WomenXMeta, ladies of BAYC, we are structured as a nonprofit and a for-profit business, so organization. So there is kind of a streamline, people are creating streamlines to try to connect the quote-unquote Web 2 to the Web 3 by putting people like ourselves, like professional individuals with a little bit of degen tendencies to be that liaison in the middle for us to connect. So yeah, vote for Tiger.
Vote for Tiger, I'll say it. I think there are a variety of different ways that can be addressed. One is for the women who are already in the space, such as the ones that are here. If you have a seat at the table, bring others. If you are not a woman and you're in this space, bring skilled, talented women to the table. For every speaker that's been here today, and the speakers have been incredible, there is a woman who is out there who also has the same capabilities and skill sets. It's not always as easy to find them, but they're out there. So conducting your own due diligence in the space, asking trusted advisors and colleagues, and making a point to expressly state your interest in building a community that is encouraging and welcoming to women. It's okay to say it, and it's nice to be heard. So if more and more women are welcomed and encouraged to be in the space, as much as I love and am honored to be on this panel, hopefully we won't have to have a panel about women talking about what it's like to be a woman in Web3, because it's not going to be that big a deal. We're already there.
This is not a question, right? This is just really not a question. You all know what to do. It's what you want, right? You want people to be interested in what you have to say. You want people to pay attention to what you have to offer. Women are no exception to that. And we are skilled. We are talented. We are wise. We build. We create. We do all the same things. So the question is, you have to have an intrinsic motivation to want to change and to want to include. Not going to compel you to do that unless you realize the value of that inclusion. So from my standpoint, I think you already know. It does start with having the foresight to bring women into these discussions, but I agree with Dori. One day I will sit on the same panel as my male counterparts, which I have in NFT and BAYC and other places, right? Because I know what I know and people value that. So call people in. That's how you build, right? If you want to know something, have a conversation with one of us and make sure that we, are invited so that you can learn something, because maybe we know something you don't. That might be kind of fun.
SoVanna, so from participation to investment, any advice for women to make to basically invest in the space, whether it be NFT or Web3?
Well, I didn't do quite investments. I helped companies raise billions of dollars to grow. So I can't give investment advice, but I will say that this is just a part of your portfolio strategy, right? You have to create diversification in your portfolio of assets that you own. So whether that's real estate, whether that's stocks, bonds, what have you, this is another asset class. There's a lot of uncertainty in this asset class because no one is prepared on the Hill to write the rules and regulations yet. So it leaves a great deal of volatility, because as much as I love crypto, I'm not paying $1.99 for a hamburger and $1,900 for a hamburger. Just not going to happen, right? So the volatility is too great. But I think as an asset class, there's a lot of use cases for why you might own crypto, why you might own Bitcoin in particular, right? So you just have to think about this as one more, piece of the puzzle for your investment strategy.
I could also add, if you are a potential collector of NFTs in particular, and this may not be a terribly popular opinion to have, but buy from people who are documented, whose identities, or at least ability to be held accountable, is present. One of the things that I've struggled with as both a lawyer and an artist in the space is the lack of language that's describing exactly what it is people who are collecting are getting and what people who are selling are giving. So that meeting of the minds, that mutual assent that you need for contract formation, it's first of all not present in a smart contract to begin with. And smart contracts are written in code. So how do you ultimately demonstrate what your intention is if you're selling an NFT, or if you're a collector? What is the reasonable expectation of what it is that you're actually purchasing? Another thing that I would add is that there are lots and lots of cases of copyright infringement and just downright plagiarism that takes place in the space. So try to do as much homework as you can about the things that you're collecting, to ensure that you're not going to be in a situation where you may not actually own it. I think that's it for now.
So advice on investing in NFTs, that's the question?
Whether it's investing or investing in yourself within the Web3 community.
I mean, the clear answer is don't. I'm kidding. It really depends on what you're looking for in an NFT project, right? And now we are we have at least 3 years with NFTs being a little bit more mainstream, where the scams still happen, but there are still core companies and brands that are doing the best they can. So it's like, Yuga is a good example. Like, we kind of consider Yuga as a poster child of the NFT brands. They're the Apple of the space right now. So why, if you have the opportunity to invest in Yuga, why would you invest in some, corner store brand thinking that you're gonna, 1000x on it? That doesn't happen, guys. Like, it just doesn't. And however, coming from a more artistic point of view, there is a level of provenance built into this system of ownership of art pieces. That is why a lot of artists come through. There's a lot of copyright infringement, all of these stuffs, where as an artist, you have an opportunity to say, my piece of art, my creation is on the blockchain, and this is the provenance to prove that this is authentic. So this is like very forward thinking, but I think I read a little bit about EisnerAmper, and it's like, you guys are about sustainability. You guys are about the long term here. So think about that a little bit. That's what I would like to encourage you. It's like, it depends where your head's at. There's a wide range of people here. Some people might be here for the art. Some people might be here for the money. Some people might be here for the tech. And some people like myself, I'm here for the community. It's like, we're trying to give this opportunity to a wider group of people, male, female, 10-year-olds, it doesn't matter. It's just, we're really here with an opportunity. And I wish we had more time to talk about DAOs, but maybe you guys will invite me next time to talk about that.
Well, perfect segue. You have the opportunity now.
Yeah.
For the community, what's the short-term and long-term takeaways you have from your perspective in terms of advice?
Short term? That's a good question. Short term, I think we're doing it right now. Like, this is like, in 2016, when I was going to a Bitcoin meeting, we were meeting in the corner, like somewhere in some like alley dive bar. Like, it was sus. It was a little sus. We were making, over-the-counter trades. Like, it's like, oh yeah, you have Bitcoin, you have some cash. Like, anyway, so that was like 7 years ago, right? So just, I would say my advice is like, kind of zoom out. Right now it seems like it's a cluster of just misinformation, which is true. But try to reach out, or try to like go down the rabbit hole of the people who have already substantiated their reputation in the space, whether that's individuals or companies, or just like, one of the beauties about Web3 is everybody wants to onboard you. Like, if you have any kind of genuine interest, as long as you're not trying to take, and you're coming with contribution in mind, doors will open for you. That's my short term. In the long term, invest in Bitcoin. I mean, forget everything else. Bitcoin. That's it. Bitcoin.
I just need to say something about Twitter very quickly. First of all, please don't rely on anything that you hear in a space, even if it is captioned the very subject on which you'd like to focus, as being the ultimate and correct and true answer to whatever it is you're seeking to find an answer for. Number 2, about Twitter. Please know that everything that you say on Twitter matters. Whether you're in a conversation or you're writing it in a post, it is a representation of you. And if you are promoting a project and you say things in a conversation about that project, and people who have bought in your project or are listening rely on what it is that you say, that's something that you need to take into account. So I think I'm gonna leave it at that, but.
Dori says this because she spent some time in our Twitter spaces. And we are very intentional. We try to bring people and thought leaders to the conversation so that we are not misleading the public or our community, which is very precious to us. I don't know if I have any single advice for each person in this room, because I'm assuming everyone's on a different part of that continuum of learning. But what I would say is, no matter what you think about the individual pieces, the technology is clear. It's going to continue to advance, and there are going to be even more emerging technologies that splinter off from here. Knowledge is key. The smarter you are, the more capable you are, and the better positioned you are. Because at some point we'll stop saying that the space is too new, too nascent, and there are no experts. I am dying for the day that people start calling themselves experts, because I think it has allowed people to say whatever they wanted to say in the name of there are no experts. We need to move towards expertise and a lot less of this influencer culture. It is not cool to just speak on stuff that you don't know anything about. So be smart and learn what you can so that you don't have to rely on other people's knowledge.
Thank you. So before we open up to questions, any final words from any of you?
DYORNFA. Do your own research, not financial advice.
Or legal advice.
And LA, is that?
All right, any questions? Yes?
So when was the DAO hack that caused the Ethereum split? Was that 16, 17, around there? Does anybody remember? Doesn't matter, right? But what we clearly saw was that this code was very easily broken, right? And all of a sudden, this cool, distributed, autonomous organization, there were a bunch of grown-ups in the room that said, hey, we want our money back. Code is not the law. So if we look back to then to today, how far along the curve do you think these DAOs have come in terms of managing and governing themselves?
Yes. Not far at all. DAOs aren't working right now. I mean, that's the fact of it. There are some successful ones with I think Noun's DAO is a good example. ApeCoin DAO is trying right now. It's only a year and a half old. And when you're relying on a larger group of non-experts to try to create a system to govern a lot of people, a lot of mistakes are going to be made. I'm going to be totally honest with you. It's still an experiment. I think that's the mentality a lot of people who are building around DAOs are going into with, and it's an opportunity to experiment with this technology. Part of the reason why I'm part of the ApeCoin DAO is they had allocated a long, long time ago, after Yuga did their fundraising, put aside, it's a billion ApeCoin tokens. So, and at the time it was 460 million tokens. So that was a lot of money at some point. But right now it's fluctuating a little bit with ApeCoin prices going down. The value of our DAO goes down too. So really the premise here for the DAO itself, as long as, or I can just only speak on ApeCoin, is to try to support creators financially through the grant process. And I can't speak anything else besides that for this particular project.
I think I might even touched on this just a bit. The fundamental problem with Web3 is it created all this language as though they were creating brand new ideas. We are still building companies, and fundamentally companies need structure. They need to be compliant with regulations, rules, laws. You can't just start a project out of thin air. You know, the most important thing that we did when we started our company was seek outside advisors, between financial advisors on the accounting side, legal advice, business advice, marketing advice. We sought out all of those things because fundamentally just setting up a project, throwing up some NFTs is not a business. And it subjects yourself and all of your people to some really bad practice, and can cost you desperately in the long run. So I think DAOs are just suffering from the concept of having decentralized governance is a great one. What distributes some of that decision making across a large group of people and a community that is like-minded. But as our friend was a Stryker, is that the name of your what's the name of your company? Yes. Splitterland. I don't know why it's Stryker. Okay, sorry, Splitterland. Like you talked about, there are some real issues with how governing DAOs work, because even though people want decision-making power, they sometimes don't want to make the decision. And that's a very interesting concept, right? Which is give the power to the people, they don't really want it, because then they have to live by their decisions. So there's some real structural issues with DAOs in that context. And I do think that we've got to get back to some fundamentals of how do you set up a proper structure and a proper business. That's my view.
Any other questions?
Are you guys all local?
Yes, Philadelphia.
Jersey.
Jersey.
I knew you weren't gonna be down with that.
What could men do to support women more in this space?
I think it's a combination of encouraging and consciously seeking and recruiting women that are talented and skilled. No one's asking for a free pass. And to some extent, and this is just my personal feeling, as a woman, I'm always trying to balance the fact that I want to assert and be proud of my gender and have people not realize that I'm a woman. It's that constant balance. And it can be exhausting. So in many ways, just treating women as you're treating everybody else, but making sure that there are a ton of them in the room.
I'm a girl, proud of being a girl, and I don't struggle with that. I've lived too long to care anymore. But I don't really understand why men feel that this is hard. All of you came from a woman. So at the end of the day, that's probably the most precious person in your life in most cases, right? So it's not that difficult to bring women into your center. And most of your mothers are pretty extraordinary beings because they raised you to be who you are. So I see this as a big extension of what you already know, which is if your mama walked into this room, what would you do? You would be very kind to mom, and you would speak to mom, and you would ask mom what she thought about certain things. So to me, that is the same respect and privilege that we are asking for in any context. So I think if you all just take a moment and step back, you'll see that this is not really that difficult, and we aren't that scary. Only if you mistreat us, we can be a little bit but for the most part, I think it's an easy question to answer for yourself.
Tyrone, I'm surprised you're asking this question because you are one of the people that do a really great job within the space, uplifting women. Barman's another person. I mean, I'm here representing NFTPhilly to low-key because they were the group that really brought me into a different subset of community, and that's the reason why I'm here today. They saw something in me that I don't even see in myself. They're like, you can go and speak on this panel because you have the experience within Web3 that maybe some of the other people do not. So shout out to Barman, shout out to Tyrone, shout out to NFTPhilly. My question to you guys is, when big blockchain conference in Philly? Soon, right? That's what we're working on, right? Like, who's on board? Yeah?
Yeah.
I'll come to Jersey.
All right, any more questions? We have some time. All right, go ahead.
I don't have a question. I'm just going to apologize for having the panel because you guys are like, it would be great if we didn't have to have this panel. It was kind of just like an overcorrection on our part because we realized, oh, there's so many men on these panels. So
It's
Well,
okay.
we have it, right?
Oh, so that's a good one. How you can support women. It's like when there are panels, invite the woman on like the more specialized interest or specialization thing rather than because we all have boobs, right? Like that's really an easy start.
And I actually just wanted to applaud you and NFTPhilly and EisnerAmper, frankly. I'm really looking forward to the day where a panel like this is obsolete. But I think up until that point, it's really critical to have these conversations. So I'm grateful and appreciative.
We'll do this, we'll do the other, we'll do it all, right? Because that's what we do. We're ubiquitous in that way. We can fit in almost any scenario that you put us in. So it's fine. This is a discussion to be had, but at some point, it's a reciprocation of that, right? I can't sit up here and say that women are critically important. I want you to say women are critically important and do it in the room that I'm not in, because that's the room that's gonna matter.
Thank you.
I'll tell you my personal journey. So I have a daughter, senior in college. I put her in STEM since she was in 7th grade, and I saw that there was a need because she was the minority in the group. So when we did this event for this month, I was like, we have to have women panelists, period. So we just saw that there was an open spot, let's get you in. Yeah, she's going to the workforce next semester, and I've been in the space, especially in banking. We saw her in banking. There's that them back 30 years ago, there wasn't too many women in the banking world. So yeah, I agree with you. I want to be in a space where we don't have a women panel or everything is equal and everything is integrated. Right, and just make sure that we have the proper representation. I can't talk in the room to support that. So I applaud all you panelists, great leaders, and thank you for taking your leadership to this community. Any other questions? I saw a hand.
For Dori, what was like the conversation that led you to actually making your art as an NFT? Like and what was the factor at all in terms of like royalty tracking? Like how much was that like
Great question, I appreciate it. It really was a function of the fact that one of my collectors was, because I knew nothing about Web3 or NFTs, and I was encouraged by one of my collectors who I think I referenced before, was the director of the blockchain laboratory at Wharton and is still now has a senior post at Wharton. And she encouraged me to learn as much as I could. I had the benefit of her team as the people who introduced me to Web3 and NFTs in particular. And so the decision to convert my artwork into NFTs was fairly straightforward in the sense that as soon as I illustrate something, I immediately have it scanned as a high-resolution JPEG anyway. And so the minting process was pretty straightforward. But one of the things that I didn't know how I was going to overcome was because my collectors collect my work up until that point exclusively in physical form, how am I going to appeal to that audience of collectors when none of them knew about NFTs at the time? So I spent a great deal of time, on the one hand, trying to figure out how I could make it as easy as possible for people to say yes, for people to understand things about Web3 that they didn't before. And I probably spent just as much time on my website creating a section for frequently asked questions. When I introduced my first portfolio, I actually hired, outsourced as independent consultants, members of Wharton's blockchain laboratory, and they were literally a concierge service for anybody who was interested in buying one of my pieces of art in NFT form, but maybe they didn't have a wallet set up yet. So having that support system. And with NFTs, I really saw an opportunity to put my stamp, my personal stamp, as a professional as well as a creator in the space, and try to, contribute as positively as I could to what Web3 is becoming. I don't know why I gave you that.
Any other questions? All right, ladies, thank you for your leadership in the community, and thank you for your support. I appreciate it. Rounds of applause. Thank you. Foreman, you want any last words?
Not really, but. Mike, real quick. Just thank you to everybody once again for coming out. It's a long day to do these things, right? Like, you're just sitting in the office for several hours listening to people talk, but you showed up. Thank you, speakers, once again. EisnerAmper. And all current sponsors and previous sponsors. We can't do this without the support from viewers like you. So it's a labor of love right now. So maybe we might, to do an actual full-time 2-day conference. We do want to reach out to the community, try to find sponsors and stuff to do something like that. So keep an eye out. That's it. Yeah. Once again, thank you for everybody coming out, and thank you for the speakers, and EisnerAmper, and Joey, Jason, everybody else.
All right, the food should come out in 10 minutes. Outside of that, everyone can mingle and just have a good time. Appreciate it. Again, thank you for coming.
Thank you.